This is CBC Vancouver News.
His death is senseless and heartbreaking.
An RCMP officer is shot and killed while on duty in Coquitlam.
Sometimes they don't return home. Today is one of those days.
2 other Mounties and a suspect are also hurt.
We have important legislation that's coming in the fall around zoning.
BC's premier pledges help for cities and towns for housing, firefighting, and drug decriminalization, while also asking Ottawa to pitch in.
Everything in moderation.
Health is wealth. Every day she would exercise, eat well.
A little bit of red wine once in a while.
And memories for centuries. Some of BC's oldest citizens celebrate their longevity. It began in Coquitlam, moved through Maple Ridge, and ended in Abbotsford. A quiet procession for an RCMP officer killed on a violent day. People lined the streets to pay respects to Constable Rick O'Brien, gunned down while on duty. 2 other officers were hurt, as was a suspect. Flags at city halls throughout the Lower Mainland have been lowered. Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. The shock and grief is sweeping through BC's police community and beyond. Renee Filipponi begins her coverage on how this deadly day unfolded.
It was a heavily armed response to a shooting that left 1 RCMP officer dead, 2 others seriously injured, and witnesses shocked.
Then we noticed an officer limping. He was bleeding from a wound in his leg. He had a tourniquet on. Someone was taken away in ambulance and they were doing chest compressions.
Another man in handcuffs was taken away in an ambulance.
It is with deep and profound sadness that I must advise you today of the on-duty death of Ridge Meadows Constable Rick O'Brien.
O'Brien was 51 years old, a husband and father to 6 children.
His death is senseless and heartbreaking. He simply went to work today, and he was killed doing his duty and keeping his community safe.
Officers from the Ridge Meadows RCMP were executing a search warrant at an apartment complex in the nearby city of Coquitlam, east of Vancouver. Executing search warrants is a routine police duty, but it can be dangerous, says this former officer.
You're going into somebody else's domain. You don't have really the advantage of surprise or the knowledge of the area that the person that is inside would have. But that's the same with police work in general.
Members of the community are still processing the grief and shock.
We all must feel that those that are there to protect us and to put themselves in harm's way also face risks that none of us would wish upon anyone. So this was a horrible day for so many people.
BC's police watchdog has also been brought in to investigate as officers on the scene try to piece together what happened amid a loss of one of their own.
To see police officers across this country killed trying to protect their communities enrages me.
Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Vancouver.
The CBC's Liam Britton was near the scene of the shooting for much of the day. He has more from those nearby, as well as BC's Public Safety Minister.
It's been a day of shock as people learn about the death of a Mountie at this building. People here in the city centre of Coquitlam say it's generally a safe place to be, but there have been some troubling incidents in recent years.
It is surprising, but it's not uncommon. There's a lot of shootings around Coquitlam, unfortunately, but there's a lot of gangs and stuff.
This is a fast-growing part of Coquitlam, a new SkyTrain line and lots of glittering glass towers coming up in recent years. Plenty of families, too. They say they are shaken by Constable O'Brien's death, as are his fellow officers and BC's Public Safety Minister.
He was truly exceptional, a hard worker and a good human being. His death is senseless and heartbreaking. He simply went to work today, and he was killed doing his duty and keeping his community safe.
Constable O'Brien was a person dedicated to the protection of the public and our communities. A person with family, friends, loved ones, colleagues, hopes and dreams that have been tragically cut short in a senseless, violent act.
A long procession of police cars and emergency vehicles then followed the ambulance carrying Constable Rick O'Brien's body from Coquitlam through Maple Ridge, where his home detachment was for 7 years, to Abbotsford. Many people quietly stood nearby, offering their respect and condolences. Liam Britton, CBC News, Coquitlam.
To other news now, mayors, councillors, and officials from across BC wrapped up their annual gathering with a speech from the Premier today. David Eby spoke on the last day of the Union of BC Municipalities conference, pledging more money for housing and drug issues, among other things. And as Mira Baines reports, he's looking to Ottawa for help as well.
And it's Friday. Puts me in mind of my favorite saying, TGIF. Thank God it's federal.
All kidding aside, Premier David Eby addressed mayors and councillors about what the province will be doing to tackle major issues affecting communities across BC. He announced $61 million to support local governments to come up with better housing policies. The money can be used to streamline permitting so that housing can be built faster and more staff can be hired.
We have important legislation that's coming in the fall around zoning in our province, allowing additional density that is going to require you and your councils and your staff to do extra work.
Eby also announced funding for rural firefighting teams, $4.75 million for training and equipment. Another big issue has been decriminalization. Legislation is also expected to be introduced this fall on limiting where people can do hard drugs. He says it's about finding a balance between not criminalizing people who are using drugs and safety.
We can put in place the mechanisms that are there for police to intervene when necessary, when someone's struggling in a way that makes communities less safe.
Eby's annual address to the UBCM comes ahead of his trip to Ottawa. At the top of his agenda is a federal bail reform bill, which is intended to make it harder for repeat offenders to get bail.
I'll be headed to Ottawa with colleagues to press and ensure that it makes it through the Senate as quickly as possible. There will be some meetings with senators.
He says he will also be addressing the issue of information sharing in light of allegations made by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau that India may have been involved in the killing of Sikh temple leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
We cannot protect diaspora communities, people who have home connections in other parts of the world from foreign interference, if we don't know that it's happening.
Eby is also expected to address the crucial need for housing with Ottawa. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
Some of British Columbia's oldest citizens marked National Centenarians Day with a celebration in Burnaby today. They're sharing what helped them get to 100 and beyond. Janella Hamilton has more on a gathering long delayed by COVID.
They're from all over the world.
We came over from Denmark in 1951.
One by one, more than 20 Metro Vancouver centenarians with big smiles and sparkling eyes made their way down the red carpet, welcomed by roses and a special message from BC's Premier.
Lovely.
103-year-old Martha Wuschke's daughter says her family has a lot to be grateful for after her mother overcame COVID twice.
It is something to celebrate every single day. I mean, it is almost an anomaly to actually be at this age.
This is the first time Dania Home has hosted its Celebration of the Ages ceremony since the pandemic began. Event organizers say it's a drop of joy in difficult times.
Many of these residents, the centenarians, actually had COVID. For so long, they were shut-ins, they were indoors, there was no programs going on. So this is a way to get it going again, get back into the community.
100-year-old Lee Won Yu Hoi celebrated with 4 generations of her family. Kayla Heighton says her grandmother has felt isolated during the pandemic and couldn't wait to gather with others.
Prioritize your happiness. It's important, and that was her example for us, you know. Health is wealth. Every day she would exercise, eat well, really enjoy the simple things, and look at her now.
So, how do you get to be 100 and beyond?
Being stubborn, having a good source of friends, a little bit of red wine once in a while.
Yeah.
Secret in life is everything in moderation.
The secret of Micaela for 101 is that she has never been married, no man in her life, no children, no worries. I learned that too late.
Sage advice from people who have lived through it all. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Burnaby.
Some good advice. For some, basketball is just a fun way to get some exercise. For others, it's where they learn valuable life skills. And in Surrey, one league is using the game to address the risks of violence and gang life. Maurice Katz has more from the court.
Growing up in a low-income neighborhood in Toronto in a single-parent home, basketball was a safe haven for Nate Money, but it wasn't always accessible.
I didn't have the resources, funding, ability. I didn't even have a community center close by.
Now, living in Surrey, he says you can find lots of programs for at-risk youth, but not as many for young men.
As soon as a young person graduates from high school, they lose a ton of resources.
Hey, 1, 2, 3, impact! As a former youth worker, he launched the Round Ball Impact Team. It provides heavily reduced league fees for young men, and in exchange, they attend mentorship meetings aimed at setting goals and staying focused.
When you grow up in a marginalized community and you lose those supports, you're susceptible to lower mainland gang conflict stuff. You're susceptible to an opioid epidemic.
And experts on gang involvement say community support can help empower young men.
Simply telling youth, you have to do this. I mean, they're tired of hearing that all the time, right? So how do you create that inner motivation? Because they want to do something, and that can happen only when we provide them positive experiences.
On the team, there are mentors to help players navigate adulthood.
We've done goal setting. We've done we do check-ins with our goals. If someone needs a resume, so we will definitely do that. But it's more so the interpersonal skills that we work on.
Darren Nunez has been playing with the team for the past year.
Suffer a lot with anxiety and being able to be more relaxed and more confident in myself. For me, I can speak for myself. It saved me for sure.
For others, it's an escape.
Being able to play here and being able to do my thing, to have a free mind, to be at peace of mind, it's blessed.
The team mantra is that it's bigger than basketball.
We may not win every game, but that's not the point.
Eventually, the goal is to have round ball impact teams all across the Lower Mainland. Maurice Katz, CBC News, Surrey.
Still with sports, tennis fans have descended on Rogers Arena for the kickoff of the Laver Cup.
Last year, Team World won, and Team Europe was really good last year. But I think Team World will win this year.
We're super excited, and we are traveling from U.S., North Carolina.
She's
Raleigh.
excited for better.
And yeah, I've been his fan all my life.
The Laver Cup is an international men's tournament that pits Team Europe against Team World. 6 players on each squad will compete over the next 3 days. Both teams are led by tennis legends Bjorn Borg and John McEnroe. Canadian Milos Raonic is playing for Team World as an alternate.
You can have a tournament like this, a competition like this that travels and that they do come to Canada on the West Coast that doesn't get much of this high-level tennis. It's a real great pleasure, but also a great moment for Canadian tennis.
Fellow Canadian Felix Auger-Aliassime is also set to compete for Team World. A shop nestled in Langley's Brookswood neighborhood is now going gangbusters online. Some go for the slushies and the cool snacks, or to meet its comical owner. He's known as ED. Benit Brecht stopped by to the store to see how it's gaining fans around the world.
Hey, it's Ed. Ed's in Brookswood. Come in.
Sit down in the weird angle and take some pictures or something.
You may know Amit Sharma, also known as Ed. Langley's Brookswood neighborhood sure does. Ed and his older brother run this snack and candy store. They say in 2008, they took over the space which was formerly Ed's Market.
Slowly we changed it to more like a candy store and snack and fancy stuff, Eds in Brookswood is the real OG, the original candy shop.
Since launching a TikTok account in 2021 run by his nephew, they've gained followers and fans across Canada and even the world.
That's where I saw it from originally. That's the only reason I'm here, so.
The vibes?
I know you guys love peanut butter and jelly sandwich in the morning, right? How about the peanut butter and jelly drink with the breakfast in the morning?
TikToks, we got people coming from all over now, like Greece, Ireland, and tons of people come from England. The locals are like within Canada, lots from Montreal. Like on every single corner of the store, you have a good surprise for everybody. Doesn't matter what age group you are, from little tinky minky to older people, we got for everybody something here.
What's your favorite thing about your job?
Talking all day. I do nothing other than talking.
People come for the slushy screamers, imported candies, or even just to hang with Ed.
I mean, this is the go-to place for snacks, candy. I mean, doesn't get better than Ed's. The energy. There's always good energy here, vibes.
Ed's amazing. He's very nice, polite, fun. Usually the tunes are rocking.
Talking personally with the people is a big, huge difference. Next time I'm gonna give you more ice cream in your streamers, okay?
Oh yeah.
The family hopes to keep connecting with locals and fans across borders.
Bye-bye. Have a nice day.
And I thought, well, maybe it's time to build that giant dinosaur that I always wanted.
A region in the Okanagan finally gets a dinosaur of its own, thanks to a Chilliwack sculptor and a generous patron. This story you'll want to see. And hello to everyone watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. Doctors in Edmonton have issued a warning for people and their pets. They're seeing rising infections from a tapeworm. Humans can pick up the disease from their dogs. And as Julia Wong reports, experts say the risk is in other parts of Canada too.
For Dave Rajat, feeling sick was the first sign something was off.
I had jaundice, had some pain in my gallbladder area.
After weeks of tests, biopsies on a tumor, and a scare he might have cancer, the Saskatchewan man learned last year he had a disease caused by a tapeworm known as Echinococcus multilocularis. Had you ever heard about this before?
I hadn't, no, never, it wasn't. So when the doctor phoned originally and told us what it was, we had to write it down, and then we were Googling it.
The tapeworm lives in the intestines of coyotes, and their feces contains eggs from the parasite. Humans get infected if they come into contact, typically through their pets.
And so this is the Echinococcus multilocularis infection.
This doctor says a person may not know they're sick for years, but tapeworm larvae will grow, usually in the liver, and form a mass that can destroy liver tissue. He says Alberta has become a hotspot for the disease, with the majority of patients pet owners.
This parasite was likely imported from Europe, underwent a slight mutation, and has now has a stronghold in Alberta.
And this researcher says it's very likely the number of cases is much higher.
But we suspect that more people are probably carrying the parasite and just haven't presented with symptoms yet because it's got such a long kind of incubation period. And so it's tough to say really kind of the infection rate of this parasite right now.
The disease is rare, but Waldner says people should stay alert in Alberta and beyond.
I think it's very realistic to expect at some point cases will be diagnosed across the country.
As for Rajat, he muses he may have become sick through his dog, who worked with him on his cattle farm and had a tumor a few years ago. Rajat is now on medication, but says it's difficult not knowing what the future holds.
I would say that's probably one of the biggest things, is just the mental side of the unknowns.
Experts say there are things you can do to reduce your chance of infection. They recommend washing your hands often when around pets, fencing off your gardens, and deworming your animals. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
Penticton has a very shiny new trailside attraction, a 7-meter-tall stainless steel dinosaur just off the Kettle Valley Rail Trail on the city's lower bench. Brady Strachan went out to meet Alice, the T-Rex.
Moving a 5-ton dinosaur into place is no easy task. It takes a team of workers and 2 crane trucks to gently lift the glimmering stainless steel pieces into place. This metallic marvel, a T-Rex affectionately known as Alice, is the latest work by metal sculptor Kevin Stone. Any issues?
So far, so good. The issue has always been flipping this back and forth and worried about damage and stuff.
Once installed, Alice will stand 7 meters tall on this concrete slab and look out upon Okanagan Lake from this luxury vacation rental property in Penticton.
The face is real mean looking and aggressive looking and very detailed. So I really hope it shows well. That's all I could say.
This is just the latest metal sculpture Stone has created in his Chilliwack workshop. Some of his other works include this fire-breathing Game of Thrones dragon, ferocious-looking birds of prey, and this massive bust of Elon Musk, commissioned by a cryptocurrency company. As for the T-Rex, Stone estimates he's put nearly $400,000 worth of parts and labor into her. The detail is impressive, from the dozens of foot-long teeth to the textured ridge that runs 15 meters down her back and across her tail. The most painstaking work, however, using a power hammer to create the thousands of bumpy outdents on the T-Rex's body.
And it's a speed hammer, so it hammers really fast and violently, and it's really hard on your hands and your joints, and the vibration and loud, it's violent.
Alice is the first of Stone's works that's actually staying close to home. It was commissioned by tech businessman Frank Schilling, who lives in the Cayman Islands.
I always wanted a piece of art that was, larger than life and based on something I'm passionate about. So I just sort of always liked dinosaurs. And I thought, well, maybe it's time to build that giant dinosaur that I always wanted.
Alice isn't hidden away on the property, but instead she's visible to the public from the rail trail that runs in front.
I don't know if I had that kind of money, if I'd spend it on this type of thing, but, I'm grateful that he did, and we never know what it'll become. But, yeah, it's quite nice of him to do this. Very generous.
And with her gaping mouth filled with dagger-like teeth glimmering in the sunlight, Alice the T-Rex is a sight to behold, a sight everyone can now see for themselves after a short bike ride along the rail trail. Brady Strachan, CBC News, Penticton.
That was sunset earlier tonight from Long Beach Lodge in Tofino. Brace yourself. Fall is not going to be subtle this weekend. Darius has your forecast next.
This is the kind of census increase nobody wants. The number of rats in Canada's biggest cities is skyrocketing, spurred on by this summer's dry, warm weather. Lynn Robson now from the front line in the war against the rodents.
Vancouver, a good place to escape the rat race, right? Wrong. Rats, thousands and thousands of them have invaded the waterfront and the back alleys. So many rats, health officials are worried.
They also destroy food, property. They can actually chew into house wiring and cause house fires. So they are a health and a safety concern.
Rats are on the rise in Montreal, too. In fact, this house of prayer has been dubbed the House of Rats. 3 rat sightings in 2 weeks, says this woman.
Later, I was looking at my friend and I realized there's a second rat sitting right behind her. I think that one was dead because it didn't move. About 2 days later, I came back to work again and I saw another one.
Exterminator Harold Levy knows rats, knows the cracks and crevices that lead straight to broken sewage pipes. He says the city is partly to blame for happy rats. The sewage system is old and crumbling. Rats like that, he says. Plus, garbage on the streets, deserted buildings, it all adds up to rat heaven. But that doesn't explain this year's rat explosion. Good weather does.
Montreal's had one of the hottest, driest summers on record. People liked it. Turns out the rats did too.
Warm summers, mild winters, perfect weather for big rat families, he says. In Toronto, same weather, same result.
Our rodent jobs have almost doubled this year over the course of what we were doing last year.
City officials say there's no rat problem. Rats to that, says this man.
Go back into Sketches Park, they're crawling all over the place inside the gardens and stuff.
Claire Barassa says the solution will come. It will rain and fill the sewers.
Sometimes when you have big rain, they can drown.
Oh, nice. What a shame for us, though.
No sympathy and no leftovers to feed all those hungry rats. Seems like a rat just can't get a break anymore. Lynn Robson, CBC News, Montreal.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
As we head into the weekend, Darius Madavi is here with our BC-wide weather forecast. And wow, fall is not being subtle as we say goodbye to summer.
It is not. The equinox is tonight in just a few minutes at 11:50 p.m. right here. Really harsh divide. Sunny skies today, blue skies today, and then just rain. And it's not, I know we've been asking for rain. This is not the kind of rain that we were asking for. This is going to be intense. This is an atmospheric river event that's going to be passing through the south coast, breaking into parts of the interior. I've heard it called a fire season ending rain, at least for the coast, probably not for the interior. The amount of showers we're going to get there will help for sure, but not fire season ending, but going to really douse us here on the south coast. And a large part of the reason is that we have what we call a bomb cyclone. So this is tomorrow night. You can see this is a low pressure system, a strong one, but the bars are pretty spaced out. Move 24 hours into the future. Look at how tightly packed those bars are. That means that's an incredible drop in pressure over not much space. What that means is that there's going to be some incredibly high winds as that comes closer to the island. It's going to bring some incredibly strong rainfall. We're looking at wind speeds of up to 90 kilometers per hour for the west coast of the island. Considering how dry it's been, the drought-stricken trees there, that could be a real danger because we might see some of those trees fall just as a result of how strong those winds are. Now, if we take a look over the next 48 hours, you can see that sort of build up on the coast. This is 100 millimeters of rain for parts of Vancouver Island forecasted. Some models say something a little bit different. So that was 100 millimeters over just over 12 hours or so. If we look at a different model, it ends up being a little bit different, but as we watch that play forward too, still ends up being a pretty similar result. We're talking a lot of rain, more than we could have probably wished for, because that's going to probably cause some flooding. We have some high stream flow advisories in place. With the ground just being so dry, that water's just going to run right off. And across the province tomorrow too, we're seeing that rain, just a chance for parts of the interior. More than likely, the showers that are Sunday night into Monday are going to break through, and that's where we'll see our significant rainfall for the interior. But here in Vancouver, it's nothing but rain in the forecast ahead. Tomorrow, showers probably in the afternoon. Small chance Sunday until we hit overnight, and then the chance really jumps, and then very significant rainfall coming for Vancouver. We're looking in the range of well into the double digits of rainfall.
You have been warned, people. Thanks very much, Darius.
Thanks, Dan.
And that's your late news for Friday. Thank you for joining us tonight and all week. For news anytime, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is tomorrow morning at 6:30 on CBC Radio 1, and your late news is tomorrow night at 10:30. Good night. Enjoy the weekend. Stay safe.